To order, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing. Following the Pledge of Allegiance will be a silent moment of reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will have the reading of the notice, please.
The adjourned annual meeting of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, composed of 38 members, will convene at the Marathon County Courthouse Assembly Room, 500 4th Street, Wausau, on Tuesday, January 23rd at 7 p.m. And the agenda was duly signed and posted.
Thank you. I would like to also now request everyone please silence their cell phones and any other electronic devices as to not be an interruption to the meeting. And thank you for your compliance. And we'll move on to roll call. And I'd ask all supervisors, please sign in. Okay, thank you. And I'd like to welcome all of the visitors that we have here with us this evening, along with the viewing audience, and thank you for your interest in county government. And we will proceed on to item B, educational presentation and reports. Item B7 is standing committee chairpersons or designees. Any reports by standing committee chairpersons or designees? Okay. Supervisor Vensky?
Nope, sorry, I hit it by mistake.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to consent agenda, and item number 12D has been pulled and will be dealt with separately, so is not part of the consent agenda. So items C8 through items C12C is on the consent agenda. So what is your pleasure? Okay, the clerk needs to pull it off of the consent agenda and then create a separate entry. So before anybody makes a motion, just hold on. And now we're good. What is your pleasure? I have a motion by Supervisor Drabek and a second by Supervisor Vensky to approve the consent agenda items C8 through items C12C. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Craig, you'll have to vote verbally. I don't believe that you're on open meetings.
No, I'm not. Yes.
Thank you, Vice Chair McEwen, for the vote. Yes, and we will continue. And the motion is carried and is unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on now to item C12D. What is your pleasure? Time out. Now before you is item C12D. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Vensky and seconded by Supervisor Langenhan. Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In reviewing on page 8 of 24 of the proposed ordinance, the section under 5, horses, under C, I was intrigued because it talked about beasts of burdens, and sometimes my wife refers to me as one of those. But the language was awkward, and I spoke with Mike Perner and Jamie Pauley and trying to get language that grammatically read a little bit better, but did not change the intent toward that end. So Mike has developed an amendment to clarify it. I think they were going to try to pull it up.
Actually, if I can just read
Explain it. And I would first of all, if we get it on the floor, I would move adoption of amending section 5, horses C, replacing C with a new C.
The new C would read, "No person shall use, operate, or park a buggy pulled by a horse or other beast of burden upon any bridle path, hiking trail, beach area, playground, picnic area, boat ramps, and service areas, contrary to any posted notice, within any park seasonally closed to vehicular traffic, or upon any area other than established roads and parking areas." And I can explain more after there's a second to that.
Okay, is there a second to, just a second, I need the clerk to enter.
Just a second.
Okay, I'll need the motion by Supervisor Robinson. And second is by Supervisor Ritter, excuse me. Supervisor Ritter. Okay, I would ask the council to explain the amendment.
Sure. So if you take a look at what C previously said, I'm not going to read it, but it was very difficult to understand, but the intent was what I just read. The intent was to ensure that horse and buggy only operate on areas that are designated for horse and buggy, not other places. The way it was previously written, I think the intent was there, but it was difficult to discern that intent from the number of words in the wrong places. So in my opinion, it reads clearer the way it's amended, but ultimately that's up to you.
So any discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chair,
Supervisor Langenhan, please.
had died, but may I speak, please?
Yes, you can, please.
Tom, could I? Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just encourage my fellow ERC members to support the amendment. Does not change the intent of what we discussed at committee. If it did, of course, it would get pulled back to the committee. So I would just urge you all to support it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Supervisor Seibert, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The thing is, Amish buggies on boat ramps. I know coming through Roselville, there's buggies pulling boats every Sunday. We're not going to allow them to be able to put their boat in, is what it says. It's an unbelievable amount of buggies that come through Roselville pulling a little boat behind in a trailer. And they're heading down to Lisa's Landing is where they're heading. So, I mean, where are we going to allow them to put the boats in, and who's going to police that? Thank you.
Corp Counsel?
I'll start with the second question first. The policing would be similar to any of the other park ordinances enforced by our recreation deputies. Regarding the question of how it would apply to boats, it specifically talks about horse and buggy. It doesn't say horse and boat. I think the intent, though, is to restrict horses pulling items in areas that are not designed to take that weight. I don't know, Jamie, if you have anything additional to add that would sound more intelligent than what I just said.
I think our intent, so this came about with questions. We had quite a few Amish families visit Big O Plain this last year, and we had nothing in our ordinance to say whether or not they could be and or couldn't be. We had language about horses and where horses could be, but not as far as the buggy part of it. And so to clarify with our rec deputies, we were trying to work on this. I was not aware of the horse and the buggy pulling a boat, but if that is something that they can do and the buggies are equipped for that, then I think maybe one more amendment to this would just be to move that boat ramps areas to the end where it says upon any area other than established road, boat ramps, and parking areas. That would allow them, they could back their buggy up to the boat ranch, launch their boat, and then they can still park in the parking area. Where we want them to be is able to be is on the roads and in the parking lots like any other vehicle, because it is a form of transportation. That's the intent.
Thank you.
I'd ask Corp Counsel to elaborate, please.
I don't know if this will be an elaboration or a confirmation. I think Parks Director Polly's suggestion is a good one. If boat ramps and service areas were added to the end, so it read, or upon any area other than established roads, parking areas, and boat ramps or service areas, then that reads to me that if we establish a boat ramp or service area for the use of horse and buggy boat, that would be permissible. Just throwing that out there.
So I would be looking for potentially an amendment to the amendment. Supervisor Sherfinsky is next.
Sorry. I will make the motion to amend the amendment per our discussion to move boat ramp, service area, other descriptions to the end so that we put all of the hard surfaced traffic areas together.
Okay, is there a second to the amendment to the amendment? Seconded by Supervisor Ritter. Any discussion on the amendment to the amendment? Any discussion on the amendment to the amendment? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. A yes will allow horse, buggy, and boat to use the boat ramp and designated areas. Supervisor Langenhan?
Aye.
Thank you. Supervisor Overbeck? Thank you. And we'll proceed. Oh, excuse me, Vice Chair McEwen? Oh, you're on open meetings. Thank you. And the motion is carried 28-0. Thank you. Now, on the amendment of the original as amended, is there any discussion on the amendment as amended? Any discussion on the amendment to the amendment? Is everybody clear what we're voting on? We're voting on the amendment as amended. We'll proceed to vote. Supervisor Langenhan.
Aye.
Thank you. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried, but is not unanimous. And yes, you can if you. Okay, just a second. We'll make note in the minutes that your vote was corrected to a yes. Now, on the original motion, as amended, the ordinance now updating Chapter 19 of the Marathon County General Code as amended, is there any further discussion? You're ready. Any further discussion? Okay. We will proceed to vote. A yes vote will approve the amendments and the changes to other changes that were in Chapter 19. Supervisor Langenhan. Thank you. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried and is unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to item D, Health and Human Services Committee, Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee, and Public Safety Committee to allocate up to $50,000 of Marathon County's opioid litigation settlement funds for the purposes of conducting a gap analysis of continuum of care for treatment and recovery in Marathon County. Resolution R-1-24. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Mask and second by Supervisor Van Cray. Any discussion? Supervisor Shafinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look at this, and it's difficult for somebody to say, well, why wouldn't we want to do this? But I also look at it from the standpoint of we have a number of people within the county, within staff, who are very knowledgeable. And I ask the question, why can't we do this analysis in-house and spend that $50,000 more directly to help in the treatment and recovery programs? Thank you.
There was discussed at the CJCC whether the expertise was inside in the house and capacity. And I think it came down to capacity and the expertise to be able to do a total gap analysis of all of the, whether it be programming, whether it be education, whether it be the interim housing or treatment. And so we wanted outside eyes to do the gap analysis, or that was a recommendation from the CJCC, Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and that was moved to the three committees, and they approved, the three committees moved and approved it unanimously. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Gap analysis.
I entered them in the wrong order. I apologize.
Need the motion a second again. Ask me the motion. I agree with the second. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. We will void that because that was, we voted on, yeah, it was, I moved to vote. Okay, now you can proceed to vote. Supervisor Langenhahn?
Aye.
I thank you. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried. And we will move on to the item number E, Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee, the 2024 budget transfer for Marathon County Women United Impact Grant, Resolution 2-24. And the clerk needs to make some corrections. Delete that one. So if I could get a motion, verbal motion, in a second, we can correct where we're at. Motion by Supervisor Rosenberg and seconded by Supervisor Shafinsky. Any discussion? Okay, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Supervisor Langenhahn?
Aye.
Thank you. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried and is unanimous. Thank you. Public Safety Committee, a resolution expressing support for Wisconsin Senate Bill 877 and Assembly Bill 940 to address recent loss in federal funding. Resolution 3-24. Motion by Supervisor Vensky and seconded by Supervisor Van Cray. Supervisor Sandelsky.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of information given to us about the Children's Advocacy Center, but after more research myself, I looked into it's under the Children's Wisconsin. That's the organization that all the Children's Advocacy Centers are under. And after further research into that, I don't find that their morals, values, or ethics do not align with the people I serve in District 25 or myself. I just say the gender affirming therapy was one of the things on their treatment plans. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Supervisor Van Cray, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just since there was not a lot of information about child advocacy centers, something important to note that we learned at the CJCC meeting is CAC provides interviewing for children that are victims of crime, and that interview can be used as testimony when they go to court. So the child who is a victim of crime doesn't have to go on the stand and be questioned by a prosecutor. And so this is an incredibly important service to prevent our children who are victims of crime from having to relive that trauma in a courtroom. Thank you.
And just a little also footnote that the Children's Advocacy Center of North Central Wisconsin, just some data, last year assisted in forensic interviews of 355 children, of which 200 plus of those children were alone from Marathon County. And so some of those children were not then subjected to cross-examination. They are interviewed by professionals that understand the children and the trauma that they've gone through, and they're utilizing that testimony that is recorded in court cases and not subjecting those children to additional trauma. And the funding used to come from the federal government. There was a change in some law that decreased the funding that was coming to the state by over $30 million. And so that is creating a huge deficit for the child advocacy centers, along with other entities that receive funding. And the assemblyman, as Pat Schneider, has offered this as a temporary fix. There has been a legislative fix at the federal level, but there's going to be a delay in when that additional funding will be available in the future. Supervisor Carvelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Supervisor Van Cray, for the explanation before the meeting on what this was all about. I appreciate that. The one thing that I don't appreciate is having this put in the agenda 24 hours before we have to vote on it, which does not give us a lot of time to do our research. I did watch the public safety meeting right before I came into this meeting, which allowed me to get at least a little bit of data on it. But I would appreciate a little bit more time, and I understand that time is of the essence because of the vote in Madison in February. But without us being able to research, these programs and these facilities, even though I'm going to support this resolution, I would much rather have much more time to be able to research this stuff. Thank you.
And I appreciate the supervisor's comments. I will just reiterate what actually has taken place. The CJCC recommended this and moved it forward to be considered. I felt that it was important to be heard by a standing committee, and the Public Safety Committee did have that hearing, understanding that if we waited till next month, the way it's tentatively scheduled, the Assembly may actually finish their floor debate on February 22nd, which would be the education meeting of this board. And so this board would not have the ability to weigh in on the recommendation that was made by the CJCC and the Public Safety Committee. And I do appreciate the timing, and I would love to provide additional timing to the board for their additional research. However, in this case, there was no ability to allow this to be delayed, because then if the floor session by the Assembly ends on February 22nd and they have taken this up, they would not have the input from the county board. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Supervisor Langenhahn?
Aye.
And we will proceed. And the motion is carried but is not unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to item G, announcements and/or requests. Signatures are needed from Health and Human Services, Human Resources, Finance and Property, Public Safety, and ERC. And also, just a side note to Executive Committee membership, the administrator's eval went out, but it had a date that was incorrect. It actually should reflect the 2023. You're doing a eval on the administrator's completion of the 2023 work plan and not the 2022 plan, but that's only on the Executive Committee's eval itself. And I would highly recommend and encourage everyone that hasn't checked their mailbox to please check their mailbox at after tonight's meeting and before you leave. Any other announcements? Okay, seeing none, anybody want to offer the famous announcement or a famous motion? Motion by Supervisor Gonnering and second by Supervisor, motion by Supervisor Vensky and second by Supervisor Marash. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all, and we stand adjourned.